We're not live yet. Okay, yeah, we're live. I hope I'm on the right page. Hey, Darren. Look at Darren's hat, everybody. Look at that hat. Hey?
It's the Gurin finest right here.
So we are... That's us right there. Talk Recovery Radio. We're getting ready for Francis's last show. This is going to be your camera operator. Say hi, Alex.
Hey.
Alex, I hand you over the camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yay. All right, ready when you are, Darren. We're gonna go live.
Stop cutting my songs off.
Well, we're top 35.
Well, let's cut the last song off.
We can't.
Okay, hold on a second. Facebook, listen. If you're listening to the radio right now, this is Xavier Rudd. I've played him many times before. If you're looking for inspirational melodies that'll make you feel something, get on to Xavier Rudd. With today's garbage, I'll say, coming out, we're losing touch of the true musicians. So just go on to iTunes, buy Xavier Rudd, and just crank it up and roll the window down, or just sit in your dark house and listen to it. Anyways, that's my plug. This song's dedicated for Francis Stone on her last day. May she walk away with grace and dignity on to better things.
Aww. Okay, we're going live.
We'll miss you.
That's so sweet.
We'll miss you, Francis.
Aww.
And we're back on Talk Recovery. Xavier Rudd, Walk Away. This is Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. Okay. Here we are. We're back. We're in the studio. This is your story. Like we've gathered so many people, so many volunteers to come and share their story, and it's like I've always felt deeply moved that people do that they're willing to do that. Just as our last interviewer said, to share what was once a secret, or something they're most ashamed of sometimes, and yeah, the feelings are none different than having you share your story today. So, thanks, Francis.
You're welcome.
And you were just saying, correcting us, it's been over 5 years.
It's been 5.5 years, Talk Recovery.
Talk Recovery has been on the air for 5.5 years. Right on. Thank you very much for everybody that's been listening and tuning in. And it's been 5.5 years. Francis Stone called me up one day and she's like, "Hey, I heard of you and Darren, through the grapevine, and I want to do a radio show. And I want you guys to be involved." And I'm like, "Okay, bye." I was kind of like, "Who is this person?" And it's like, I need anything else to do.
We get that call all the time.
Yeah,
will you do a show with us?
Well, you do that. Yeah, let's just, And so we met. I think we talked about it a little bit. And then there was this little bit of, that's interesting. And the reason why it was interesting is nobody else was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, no one's talking about recovery in the media world. Everyone's talking about addiction. And so we're, Last Star Recovery Society, decided to partner with Francis. And we're decided, hey, let's do this. And we did a first couple of shows. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore because it was a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And then you kept us going. So Francis, tell us, why did you come and approach us? Like, let everybody know how this all started.
Well, I think I'm going to go back a few steps.
Okay.
Because I guess when it starts is when you're born, so...
Oh my god. I'm at an AA meeting.
Oh, right? It's my moment, Giuseppe, sit down. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it's like your whole life does lead to moments, you know what I mean? It does lead to opportunities like this and connections and partnerships and all those things. So a little bit of my story is I was raised by my mom. I'm the youngest of 11 children, the only child of my mother and father. So I was like half sister to the other 10. So I kind of grew up in this big family, but also felt alone. And so then I grew up. My brother moved into my family's home when I was about 12. And he was struggling with heroin addiction. And life changed dramatically at that point. I should say that my father had to leave the home when I was 3 years old. because he went back to drinking. He quit drinking when I was born, but then he wasn't able to maintain that because he wouldn't get help, or at least that's how I see it, as his daughter. And so then my mom was sick of men, and she kicked him out, and he moved down here to the downtown east side, and I wasn't allowed to visit him down here. He didn't want me down here, which is the irony of being down here at the show. And then my brother moved in. He had gotten in a motorcycle accident, and he was prescribed opiates, and he had his own business, a wife, a white Corvette, which for the 80s was very cool. And he was a gorgeous guy and everything, and he had this accident, and then he went on a vacation and he wasn't able to get his prescription, so then he tried heroin. So, I mean, he had always kind of dabbled, but that was when he started using drugs for pain. And I have to be very careful about sharing his story because my family is not as open as I am, so I want to respect that. But so then he moved in, life changed, and my sort of like quiet Catholic home had become a place where people brought, scrap metal to like make money, and it just became kind of, I don't even know, dirty, really. And and life changed a lot, and I hated him. We didn't get along. But he was a very good cautionary tale for staying away from hard drugs for me, which is probably why I never really struggled with that, because I just didn't want to be like him, basically. And then I was raised Catholic, but I debated the existence of God to no end at parties while drunk and smoking cigarettes. I was totally that person.
My favorite person at a
Oh,
party.
yeah, right? Like the smoking table was always the place to be, and to debate the existence of God. Like that was, the place to go.
Yeah, so many hours of those conversations. I remember them all, and I mean, I had a philosophy for UFOs and Jesus and everything. I mean, it had nothing to do with the mushrooms, I swear to God.
Right.
But, so, I mean, you're in this lifestyle, and now you're a mom. You have 3 kids.
Yeah, well, I got pregnant. I met a guy that was really hot, and I got pregnant, and that was my first time where I really turned my will over to God. Like, it was definitely a question where I was like, who am I? What do I believe in? Like, being pregnant, it was my first consequence. Because my mother never really, she provided food and shelter, but not a lot of guidance other than Jesus. And a lot of prayer. But anyway, so it was just this big pivotal moment in my life, choosing to have my son. And then the relationship went really badly because he had just lost his son, custody of his son, and that's a whole other thing. But see, my story's really long, but I want to tell it. Yeah. I want to tell it, so I'm going to tell it. And so the relationship went really badly. He was in a lot of pain at that time in his life, and unfortunately, I was in the way of that pain, and he took a lot of it out on me. Which took years to be able to see, but I did eventually see it. And so basically from there, I just, I left at a certain point and worked really hard. And when my son wasn't with me, I started drinking in a different way than I had ever drank before. And it was because I was in pain, and my self-esteem had been completely crushed. I felt unlovable, unwanted, rejected, all those things from this relationship, but I didn't talk about it, and I didn't know even how I felt. I never thought about my feelings before that. I never, it just wasn't something I did. You just worked.
Did you feel like you were taking after your dad?
I didn't know. I really felt like it was almost like, when I think back to that time in my life, I feel like it was almost like an out-of-body experience. I don't feel like I was really present for most of that. I don't feel like I was there. Like, I really feel like there's something that happens when you experience abuse, and you just kind of survive. And I think, like, for me, there was a lot of healing that I did, a lot of different, I just didn't feel right. Like, I just did not feel right any day. And so I just kept working because I thought, work, right? Like, work will fix it. And then on the weekends, I had no friends, so I started drinking. And I just, like, crossed lines that I never thought I would cross. And it was just, like, one little line. And then, like, eventually I ended up with this, like, double life that, like, nobody knew about. I didn't talk to my family. I just could not be around people. I couldn't handle conflict. Like, I really struggled. And I wouldn't admit the struggle. I just kept working. And then the drinking increased and the consequences increased. And so then I would keep moving to fix it. And then I eventually just came to a place where I tried stand-up comedy, and that I thought was going to be the big ticket because it was awesome. And I loved the community, the stand-up community. So I moved closer to that, and then the drinking really escalated. And then we went to 1 week on, 1 week off with our son. And then I had a whole week. And then that was not good for me. And yeah, like, at that time, I just felt like a different person. Like, I was trying to, like, reinvent myself or recreate myself or all these buzzwords. And it was like I didn't know who myself was anymore. Like, I really didn't. And God was the furthest thing from my mind. Like, that was not a solution that even entered my realm whatsoever. And I did this, eventually, when I had to quit stand-up comedy, something came up. I can't remember what the deal was, but I couldn't do it anymore. And I had to quit. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I got to do something. So I started this group called The Artist Way. And we started doing these morning pages. And this really created a shift in my perspective, where I ended up having a spiritual experience. And I was able to see that my ex was broken, and I was broken. And if we didn't get our crap together, our child was going to be broken too. And that it wasn't like I was the angel and he was the devil, which, I did think. But it was like, there was two broken people that came together, and if we didn't learn to work together and, like, just forgive. Like, I didn't actually realize that I needed to forgive him, like, intentionally forgive him for what he had done while I stayed. And so I forgave him. And then he was like, okay. You'd have to know him. Like, he just didn't care. But it was this thing of, like, I was
But
released.
you didn't do it for him.
No,
you did it for
I
you.
didn't even do it intentionally. Like, I feel like God released me from this thing that I didn't even know was there, that just made me feel not right. And I was free. And then I felt like an angel.
Okay.
And the world was a completely different place. And I was on that pink cloud that people talk about. And
what was the influence around you at that time? Like,
I was
of
completely
spiritual
by myself.
Really?
Completely. Barely connected with family. Just completely isolated. And so I had this spiritual experience, and I felt loved. And it felt like, for the first time in my entire life, like, I just felt so free and so loved. And then I could see that I needed to, like, move back to my mom's. And
something happened that made you realize that God is real.
I didn't realize it at that time. I was just kind of, like, confused, like, what is this feeling, kind of thing, like, what is going on here, like, why do I feel so different? And then I kind of freaked out, to tell you the truth. Like, I was by myself, and then I kind of figured out that, okay, like, is this God? Like, what's happening? And I kind of freaked out a little bit. And then from there, I moved back to my mom's house. I, started working on my debt, I went to my boss and told him, like, all those times that I wasn't showing up for work? Well, that's because I was drinking, but don't worry. I've got it fixed. I won't be doing that anymore. And yeah, and then the next time I went in, there was a bunch of union people and HR people. And they're like, hey, you need to sign this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, like, what
Just
do you mean,
trust
like,
me.
forever? Like, I'm not gonna, like, never drink again? Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, so it got all freaky. And then, yeah, so then I went to this Extreme Christian Ideas, started reading the Bible for, like, as a how to live book, which I do not suggest. It is a spiritual guide, not a how-to. And so I was trying to do God's will in all areas of my life. And so I figured God's will on earth was for parents to be with their children, and that it was my job to make God's will happen. So I went back to my ex, and I convinced him and manipulated him to give the relationship another chance. And he's like, Frances, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. And I'm like, no, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. Give me a year. You owe it to your children.
Oh God.
Yeah, I know it happened. So yeah. So then we did. We got pregnant. We had 2 more children, 11 months apart. Little Irish twins. And we're both Irish, so that makes sense. And we, it didn't work out. And I was back at my mother's with not 1 child, but 3. And I was like, what the heck? So that started the next portion of thinking about my thinking. And like, why did I think that was a good idea?
Did you stay sober through that?
Not after I had the 3. I struggled with my drinking. And I struggled with why did God come into my life if it was going to get harder?
Felt betrayed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to make life easier and better and
Right, you were following
Perfect.
the book. You were following his book.
right? Like I thought I was
Yeah.
honestly when I quit drinking, I thought, oh, now I'll have a perfect life. Nothing's holding me back anymore. It's
Right.
like, yeah, no, like my head is what, messes up my life. Like the drinking obviously helped, but it's the thinking
Yeah.
that you don't realize until you start to, get into the recovery process.
Well, that was the movement towards sobriety and like you say, spiritual experiences, but without an influence around you.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean, there's going to be naturally some naivety as to, why things are happening and what's next and all that, with the lack of other people's experience being able to share with you.
Right. And so I just I see the time and I want to be able to share my special surprise. I have such a long story that's just not going to be able to get out today. I've been able to, because of that experience, find out that I was diagnosed with bipolar and learn about myself and how I needed to live my life to be able to do it right. Started Talk Recovery, was able to be a part of ending the child support clawback with Single Mothers Alliance, which was a huge deal. And then, wrote a book, A Reflection of Love, a different kind of love story, and went, and now it's so bittersweet to be leaving, but the next chapter for me is going to be walking into sort of more of a teaching role. And so something that I'm launching today, it should be launched on my Facebook page now, and on my website, is The Shift, which is, The Shift is a 90-day program. It stands for, so it's like the acronym SHIFT. So the acronym is S for spirituality and self-care, H for helping others and helping yourself, I for self-awareness and personal responsibility, F for future, hopes, dreams, and goals, and T for time, managing your natural rhythm, like working with yourself instead of against it. So I'm opening it up. There's only 40 spots, which is so small. I've made it really affordable, and I'm hoping to begin it in January, just in time for New Year's resolutions, which would be really exciting. And it's going to be a 90-day support program, Facebook group. It's going to be awesome.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Wow.
And what's the Facebook page?
Facebook page is Frances Stone, Certified Addiction Counselor, and even just my own Facebook page, Frances Stone. The website is missrecoveryrights.com. And that's it.
I mean, those last bits that you were talking about, the work you did with the child welfare, like that was all within the last 5 years, was it not?
That, yeah. That actually, Vivica Ellis, who is founder of Single Mothers Alliance, she a great organization. She met me through Leela, who I pitched the idea of Talk Recovery to originally.
Right.
And Leela introduced me to Vivica. So yeah, it's like
and then
God,
wrote,
right?
And wrote the book and became a counselor and
Yes.
like all of this like in such a small amount of time. Like
Yes.
really, like the story of from birth, right?
Right.
Like
I
it
know.
takes so much.
I should have known better than that.
It takes a lot of life though. It takes a lot of life and a lot of time of being confused, of trying everything you possibly can, of losing yourself, of pulling the plug, like making mistakes for it to sort of all, kind of come together and shift.
Though there's one, if you play back the whole conversation you just had, there's one pivotal moment that changed the projection of your life. And I feel it's the same for me, and I kind of know Darren's story. I also know his story that's holding the camera, Alex. You finally decided to take your inventory and your relationship and what you needed to do to make your life better in this world. Your husband's not going to change, or like nothing else is going to change.
Right.
Like you can't change it all. You need to change yourself, and I like for me, I finally like the first time someone told me to take my inventory, I told them it just didn't make any sense.
Right.
And now I understand, my part and my role.
Yeah, and these are the shifts that we know in recovery, and these even where you think of like service instead of or how you think of self-care instead of being selfish. Like it's like these little shifts that like change the way you think, and then they change the way you live. I'm so excited to be a teacher. So excited.
I'm so excited for you. This is not goodbye.
No.
It's
see you
just
later.
It's see you later. It's like let's watch and see it all grow. Francis Stone, everybody, thank you so much for coming in. This has been Talk Recovery on Vancouver Co-op Radio, 100.5 FM, and we are going to leave you with a little Elton John, Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatters.
Aww.
Thanks, Francis.